Let's talk about something that I promise you underpins our entire economy. It's not about profits, it's not about losses, it's about trust. Today, we're diving into the world of accounting ethics. And you're about to see that this is way more than just numbers on a page. It's a high-stakes game that affects every single one of us. Okay, so check this out. This slide gets right to the heart of the problem. An accountant can use the exact same numbers to paint two totally different pictures of a company. On the one hand, you're trying to get a bank loan, so you paint a masterpiece, right? Healthy, strong, optimistic. But then, on the other hand, it's time to talk to the IRS. Suddenly, that picture looks a whole lot less rosy, more conservative, more cautious. Same numbers, but the story they tell, worlds apart. And that is where the ethical tightrope walk really begins. So here's our roadmap. First, we're going to dig into this whole idea of painting with numbers. Then we'll get to know the accountant and what I'm calling their threefold vow. After that, we'll see the main event, the big conflict between the client and the public. We'll look at the ethical compass that's supposed to guide them, see how it all plays out on the front lines, and finally, we'll talk about why trust, at the end of the day, is absolutely everything. All right, let's jump right into part one, painting with numbers. This is where we really unpacked how a single company can have what looks like multiple and sometimes conflicting financial truths.
You know, in a perfect world, any fair deal requires both sides to know what's what. It's like buying a used car. For it to be a fair exchange, you need to know the whole story, the good, the bad, the ugly, not just the shiny parts the seller wants to show you. That's called informed consent, and it's pretty much the bedrock of a healthy market.
So what happens when one side is basically cheating? When the numbers are twisted on purpose to mislead people? Well, it's not just a bad deal anymore. It's a fundamental breach of trust that can shake the whole system. That's when creative accounting stops being creative and just becomes, well, a lie, a very deliberate deception. So with all this pressure to bend the truth, what keeps the whole system from just falling apart? Well, that brings us right to our second section, the accountant's threefold vow. This is the core ethical code that is the foundation of the entire profession. And at its heart, this vow is a really simple but incredibly powerful three-step process. First, you record the information, the truth. Second, you provide that information to the people who need it. And third, and this is the big one, you attest to its truthfulness. You literally sign your name, staking your professional reputation on the fact that those numbers are legit. It's a massive commitment. And who are these legitimate users? We're not talking about a small group of people. We're talking about the entire economic ecosystem. You've got managers inside the company, investors outside, lenders, rating agencies, and of course the government for taxes. An accountant's work has this huge ripple effect that touches, well, pretty much all of us. And this is where our story gets really dramatic. We've got our professional, the accountant, and we understand their vow. But now it's time for the ultimate test of their resolve. Welcome to Section 3, Client versus the Public. I mean, really think about this for a second. The company that signs your paycheck wants that beautiful, optimistic masterpiece we talked about. But the public, all those investors and lenders relying on your work, they just need a photograph, an unvarnished, totally unfiltered look at reality. So where does your loyalty lie? With the person who pays you, or with the public trust you swore to protect? And the profession has a very clear, very direct answer. Unlike a lawyer or a doctor, whose main duty is to their client, a public accountant's ultimate allegiance is to the public. Their job as a guardian of financial truth is considered so important that it actually rises above any single client relationship. Now, the official line from the AICPA, one of the big governing bodies, is that this isn't really a conflict. Their argument is that by putting the public first, an accountant is actually playing the long game for their client, because a company that's built on a foundation of truth is a company that's built to last. It's not just about being honest, it's actually about being smart. Okay, so how do accountants actually navigate all of this pressure? What keeps them on the straight and narrow? That's what we're going to get into in Section 4, the ethical compass. This is the whole system of rules and organizations that serves as their guide. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with integrity. But this is more than just being honest. It's having the guts to stand up for the truth, even when it's hard. It's about respecting a client's confidentiality for sure, but never, ever letting that be an excuse to hide a lie. The truth always comes first. And integrity has a couple of key partners. There's objectivity, which means you have to be independent, an impartial judge of the numbers, no biases allowed.
And then there's competency, which is a promise to always keep learning and stay on top of your game. You can't really be a guardian of the truth if you don't have the skills to find it, right? And look, this isn't just about relying on an accountant's personal conscience. There are a whole bunch of watchdogs, or referees, if you will, keeping an eye on things. Organizations like the FASB and the PCAOB. These are the groups that literally write the rulebook, what's known as GAAP, or Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. They're the guardians of the guardians. So we've talked about the big ideas and the principles, but what does all this look like in the real world? Let's head to the front lines in Section 5 and see how these ethical challenges play out in the day-to-day work of different accountants. First up, the auditor. If you think of business as its own language, the auditor is basically the expert grammarian. Their job is to go through a company's financial statements with a fine-tooth comb and make sure every number and every word is being used correctly to tell a true story. And this quote from a huge Supreme Court case says it all. The auditor's job isn't just to crunch numbers. Their fundamental role is to bolster, to strengthen the public's trust. That's a huge responsibility. They've got the weight of the entire financial system on their shoulders. All right, let's switch gears and talk about another major player on the front lines, the tax accountant. Now, they walk a totally different kind of ethical tightrope, one that's stretched between helping their client and fulfilling their duty to the public tax system. And this slide just perfectly captures the deep philosophical question every tax accountant has to face. Is their job to follow the letter of the law, to be a strategist who finds every single legal loophole to save their client money? Or is it to follow the spirit of the law, to act as a partner in the system and help their client figure out what their fair share truly is? That's a really tough question that gets to the very soul of being an ethical professional. And all of this brings us to our final, and maybe the most important section. What happens when this whole ethical system breaks down? When the compass fails? Well, as we're about to see, the consequences are nothing short of catastrophic. Yeah, history is just littered with the wreckage of companies that lost their way. Scandals like WorldCom weren't just about cooking the books. They were a fundamental betrayal of trust on a massive scale. We're talking about real people losing their jobs, their life savings, their futures. The cost of these ethical failures isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in shattered lives. Which leaves us with this one final question. In an economy like ours, an economy that is literally built on numbers, what is the ultimate cost of a lie? It's not just the money that vanishes, it's the trust that gets destroyed. And in a system that needs trust to survive, a single lie can be enough to bring the entire house of cards tumbling down. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it?